Hello, hello, hello. Hi. It's lovely to have you here. Hello, everybody. Whoever is with us on the line, feel free to set yourself, be comfortable. Crystal, I think you just went to grab your cup of tea. I do have my water with me. So, whatever it is that you need, lovely people. There we go. I can see the smoke actually coming in. So, hopefully, this is going to warm you up. There we go. It's a pleasure to have you. This is actually a new month, which means a new theme, and it's all about owning your worth. So, obviously, you were first to mind when it comes to talking about these topics around money, around mindsets, and obviously, I know some people haven't met you yet. So, would that be okay to share a few words about yourself?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for having me. I haven't done a live for a little while. I'm like, oh yeah, how does this work? About me. So I am the founder of a company called Mind Over Money, which, as the name suggests, it's all about your mind and money and building the confidence to make good financial decisions, whether that's with your personal finances or your business finances. So I work with people making those key business decisions as well. Background-wise, I'm a chartered accountant. So I did that for over 12 years. I'm a CBT coach. I focus on neurodiversity. And I'm also the board director advisor for, I think, three, as it stands, four
You are a
organizations.
busy woman.
Yes, I like to be busy and stress myself out. I love
Love
what I
that.
do. So yeah.
Love that. For anybody who might have not have come across around CBT, would that be okay to share a bit more about what that does involve?
Yeah, so cognitive behavioral therapy is all about an approach to getting you to make a change, basically changing your behavior, changing what you do, changing how you deal with certain situations. And it's focused on your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs about certain situations, and gets you to kind of reframe them. And it brings about amazing transformation. I mean, I had it for myself for a dog phobia, exposing myself there. But it works, from running across the road in fear to stroking dogs in Regent's Park. So
Nice, well done. Okay, exciting. So, I mean, just to summarize what you said, I love the fact that you shared everything about what you do in the sense that it seems to me that you are very much involved when it comes to, supporting, I think, people, but also teams. I think you work with companies too on the money side of things, but very much around the psychological element as
yes.
well of it, right? So, what made you bring those two words together?
Nice question. I mean, it was needed. Fundamentally, I mean, kind of like most people who do this type of service work, it starts personally. So, I was raised in a single parent home, which was wonderful, but I saw mum struggle. And as I became qualified as an accountant, and I studied financial maths as well, so I became this numbers whiz, acquired property really early on, and I saw myself excel. And when I looked back at the people around me, I was like, why are they not also excelling, although I'm trying to teach them? And then as I continued to learn about finance and realized that I was also neurodiverse, I started to lean into the whole psychological aspect of what we do with our money. And, as time went by, I started to incorporate that into my work, and that brings about massive change. It's starting with the human, their fears, their beliefs, their usually wrong assumptions about themselves, the world, their reasons for where they are. And once you untangle all of that, empower an individual, get them excited. I think one thing I should say more often, I get creatives excited about finance, which, in the world
Ooh,
of the
yes.
assumptions we make, right? But that's where it starts. Once you get that foundational piece done and untangled, then people are actually excited to do the right thing with their money. So I've just kind of continued on that path, really.
I'm glad that we having this conversation, and I'm so glad that you shared a little bit more about your path. Thank you so much for that, because the way I see it, and obviously I do have my own sort of personal relationship as well with money. I can't remember which money guru said that, but something on the lines of like, money is not like good or bad; it's just a
Mhm.
relationship that we have with it that then
Yes.
influence the whole piece, right? And I don't know where it's coming from. Obviously, we might not have one explanation for that, but for some reason, I feel like a lot of people, and I know a lot of my clients, for example, do have the relationship with money, which is on the complicated side of things, whereby they're either not comfortable with it or they're not comfortable talking about, like, for example, how much salary they want to go for or owning their worth. And I mean, I don't know what you've seen throughout your work, but I'll definitely be interested and curious to know about how do you see, I know it's a big loaded question, but how do you see the relationship with money being evolved into a healthy side of things? Like any, I know we jumping into like tip side of things, but yeah, I'd love to know more about what you've seen throughout the work when it comes to people and their relationship with money, and any particular things we can implement to move away from like the whole like this is evil type of thing.
Yeah, no, the question's fine. This is my day to day, right? And just in terms of the beginning part of your question, we as people have so much emotion attached to our money because of what money signals or represents in our day to day life, right? We use money to buy things to show to the group we're within that, look, I fit in. It's belonging. If we think back to Maslow's, for example, there's so much loaded in the concept of money. And if you personally, so stepping away from money, have possibly insecurities, or you're raised in a certain way where certain areas are more valued to you, then you're going to use money to satisfy those values, those needs, the desires. And that's where it can get really quite intricate and complicated and lead to decisions around your money that you're paying for a really amazing car, but actually you can't afford that. Or I remember I was speaking to Yemi Jackson the other day and talking about, climbing the career ladder and earning more. And depending on the industry you're in, it's you go out on a Friday night for drinks and you end up spending crazy amounts of money. I think it was Peter Komalafe talking about, buying £1,000. I think it's Giuseppe's. I don't know what they are, but you do certain things to fit in. And even if you earn a great salary, you still can find yourself with not much money. Some of my clients are on 6 figures and still a negative every month. So in terms of the reasons, that's kind of where they tend to stem from. And kind of moving on to the second part, what you can do, and this is kind of the work I do, there are, quick tips and tricks and set up this account or do that. And that's usually quite temporary and doesn't last long. The focus needs to be on the behavioral change and understanding where you are in terms of, like you said, your relationship with money. Okay, what is it I believe? What am I using money for? How much have I loaded onto the concept of money? And untangling that, because then exactly what you said, another phrase you might have heard is money is a tool. And actually we should be using it to help us create whatever life we want to have, as opposed to using it to show that we are this and show that we are that. So the first step is kind of, if you're at the grassroots, it's, okay, what do I think about money? Have I ever sat and thought, how do I feel about this? What am I doing with my money? Have I got an uncomfortable relationship with it where I go look at my bank statement? It's trying to understand that ground level, and then you can start the journey.
Yeah, I mean, this is so fascinating. I'm so glad we're having again this conversation, because for some reason, I don't know why or how, but this is so rooted with this core emotion of fear, right? I mean,
Yes.
I know, for example, for me personally, for years, the whole money concept was very much a synonym of security. I was literally associating this with that. And obviously, over the other years, I worked on this to realize actually this is not how it works. But I just find it so fascinating, because it just rooted with those emotions, like very, very deeply at the core. And yet a lot of people keep it at surface level, like you were saying. They don't necessarily go and ask the right question, which is, what's my relationship with money? So I'd love to know more from the work that you've been doing. What would you say have been the main challenges that people have when it comes to their money and managing their money?
Yeah, I think, again, we briefly spoke about this, and I think the surface answer could be, people have a lot of debt. Sure. but why? It's not just, and that's where, chucking money at people doesn't always fix the problem. There's a term, I don't know if you've heard about it, financial enabling. Yeah, and for those who aren't aware, that's basically, for example, you have a sibling or a child or whatever, and they're relying upon you heavily financially, and they're not doing for themselves to get themselves out of that situation. And you maybe feel guilt or responsible. And instead of giving them the space to go and learn, you're, I've got no money this month. Can you give me £200? Okay. They don't give it. But, it starts to get a bit fiddly, as an example. And I think in terms of the common problems I come across, one is hiding from your financial things and
Interesting.
like just totally avoiding, and like I said earlier, not looking at your bank statement.
It's like if I ignore it, it doesn't exist kind of vibe, is it?
100%, the ostrich effect,
Okay.
burying your head in the
Yeah.
sand.
Interesting.
And that goes back to your point about fear. If you are placing a lot of value in having a lot of money, seeing your bank account as low doesn't feel good because that is so significant and important to you. So you're avoiding even addressing your finances so they can be healthy, strong, and all of that good stuff. And then I think the other one that I see very commonly is making assumptions. So when it comes to, for example, a client I had the other day, she was, and this is where it goes back to the core of the issue. She was finding that she was stuck in a credit card trap. She was, spending on her credit card. The next month she has to pay back that credit card, but because she's paid back that credit card, she has to use the credit card. Right, and then and it feels really uncomfortable. This particular client, as you can imagine, full of tears, and to work with her to understand what was going on, we had to, let's pause, step back. Let's really identify what's going on a foundational level with your finances. So her assumption, just giving you a really basic example, was her groceries every month are £200. So she'd built a budget and put groceries at £200, but they're actually £450. As a really simple example. So she was assuming that everything was fine, and every month she's finding herself really stuck and confused. So again, linking it back with the fear piece, we avoid our finances out of fear of more of what we're going to find. But often taking that brave, and it is really a brave first step to dive into your numbers, then it's opening the doors for you to, make them perfect or amazing and build good systems.
I love it. I mean, like we say in coaching, the first step is awareness, right? So absolutely. Okay. Very interesting. I mean, personally speaking, I know that a way I went brave with that was just hiding with my phone, where you can actually on your bank account, you can just log the categories that, the spend goes in. I was like, you know what, I'll take this as a first step. Just like,
it's a big step. It really is. Because then you're shown this is what you're actually doing with your money. It exposes you,
Exactly.
You can't
hide. And I think this is really interesting what you've just said about being exposed. I feel like a lot of people are potentially worried about, like you were saying, what he will say about themselves. And I think there is a part of them that potentially wants to protect themselves by just either parking the whole topic, like you were saying, or just playing the ostrich mode or whatever that is. What I'd love to know more, I know there is this question that comes time and time again with my clients, is the whole owning your worth. So especially in the context, for example, of being a full-time employee, for the salary side of things and negotiating salaries or even changing roles. And, it's like the big loaded question, like, what are your salaries expectations? And I know a lot of my clients that just freeze and, oh my God, I just don't know. So I'm sure you probably have worked with some clients who might have had the same sort of challenges. Do you have any particular steps for people to get started on that journey of facing what their own worth is and working towards being comfortable with the whole thing?
Yeah, and I did a talk on this the other day. I think I'm doing a live on it again soon, actually, but exactly that. And often, like we spoke about right at the beginning, people attach their personal value to their salary or their income, whatever, however you generate your money. So when it comes to the workplace and seeking a pay rise, you've got it's now loaded with how you feel about yourself. So if you don't feel like, I don't know, Gary Vee, I don't know, somebody who is, top of the game in terms of social status, you requesting a higher salary just feels really uncomfortable because it's like, well, I'm not like that. Whereas a possible reframe is thinking about what you get paid in terms of the value you provide to the organization.
Nice.
So the company or the organization, whatever it may be, are paying you a certain amount of money to deliver XYZ outcomes for the organization to be able to perform whatever that may be, right? So forgetting the salary pay rise for the minute, what you are being paid is based off the fact that it makes business sense, it's viable as a business model to them for you to earn, or be paid what you're being paid.
That amount.
And that, I think, initially just separates you from it being about your personal worth. It's actually, it's a business case, right? Which can be quite crude, but it's one way to detach yourself from it, and detach it from, my boss has given me this much money, and because and then kind of going forward and seeking a pay rise, there's things you can do. It's audit your skills, your experience, your qualifications, look at the market, what is normal, what's average, what would be okay, excessive, consider your industry, and get all that information together so it's more fact-based and not emotional-based. So when you go forward, the case for that pay rise is less about, I just want more money and I feel like I'm worth it. It's okay, well, where is that coming from, to build a case for your employer? And then again, links back to the first point, it has to be viable for the business.
Yeah,
it has to make financial sense for them.
I think this is like my takeaway from our conversation so far is definitely around making sure that wherever you are when it comes to managing your finances or your relationship with money, moving it away from the emotional side of things and towards the rational side of things. So very much on this example, like you said, it has to be like a business case that you can build. It's really interesting. And I know it brings me back to when I first started my business, because obviously when I first started my business, I didn't have as many clients. And I did a shortcut of like the failure or the successes of my business equals the failure of the success I have, me, like directly, like just like this together.
It's one.
Obviously, exactly. Very not healthy, right? So I did some work to like untangle the whole piece. But it goes back to what we were saying, which is don't be afraid, for anyone listening to this, like don't be afraid to dive, like you were saying, about what's your relationship with money. And from that, then identify what needs to happen next. But I feel like, thank you so much. Those are very practical tips. And again, it's easy to get entangled with the emotions, to be, oh, I'm not worth as much because they refused or whatever it is. But actually, like, as you were saying, think back about what is it making sense for the business. And also, if you really, like you said, have done your audit with the salary, I always say, and I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I always say, don't be afraid to maybe go to another company. Like if you feel you're not being recognized for your worth, doesn't mean that you have to stick in that environment, because you are allowing them to validate the fact that you're worth less than what you actually should be going for.
Yeah, and just on that point, actually, and I wasn't even thinking about that, but yes, 100%, and I should be careful here, but hiring a new member of staff is very expensive. Not just the recruitment costs, but also the training time and effort that's required, which will impact the outcomes of that role in that period of time. So it's in an organization's interest to pay you correctly. That doesn't mean, back to your point, that they may reject, say no, but that doesn't mean anything about you and your value. It may just mean that that individual is a bit short-sighted and is not seeing, actually, you have a good solid business case, or a case period for the pay rise. And also on the other side of it, just thinking about you as an individual and what you need to earn, that should of course go into it, thinking about your lifestyle. But I say that with caution, because just because your home life requires you to earn £6,000 or £10,000 a month, doesn't mean your qualification and expertise can demand that. And that might mean, all right, let me upskill, which is absolutely fine. But it does require a bit of attention to make sure that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think it brings me back to the next point that I wanted to also ask you. Obviously, the whole topic today is around money, mindset, but also potentially the confidence that goes with it. Because I know, for example, for me personally, when I first started, I had like a student loan to pay back. Like it was very stressful, the whole like managing to pay my rent here in London, super expensive, paying my student loan. Anyway, so confidence-wise, I was not the greatest. Definitely not comfortable in terms of asking for salary raise and stuff like that. So how do you see the relationship between confidence or even self-confidence with money, like the two of them like working together? I think sometimes they can work against each other. So how do you see them working together actually?
Well, I talk about financial confidence in itself and a term called self-efficacy. Some people haven't heard that, but it's basically your personal belief in your ability to do something, full stop. And I apply it to finance because many of us are not in the right financial situation or a good, healthy financial situation, and we need to get to a desirable point in the future. And for you to be able to embark on that path, you have to believe that you can. And if we go back to something in psychology, it's once you believe something's possible, then your brain literally opens up and can see those possibilities. So, I'm sure everyone's kind of experienced, assuming drivers here, I don't know, if you get a new red car, all of a sudden you see red cars on the street all the time. I mean, I did. It was blue, but, so if you're primed to recognize XYZ opportunities, solutions, outcomes, you will be more likely to see them. And here I'm slightly going over into things such as the law of attraction and things like that.
Yep.
But so self-efficacy and confidence is in the same realm. If you believe that you can sort your finances, earn whatever you want to earn, then you'd be opening and welcoming to the opportunity that pops into your email, or, the project at work, which you maybe were a bit nervous about doing. And actually, if you do it, it's going to put you in this space, etc., etc. Just help you improve your finances. And then back to what we said earlier, dive into your financial situation and get clear. Okay, where am I? What needs addressing? Okay, how can I do that? If you believe you can do that, you will do that.
Love that. I think it sort of prompts the whole like visualization as well exercise. I don't know if this is something you also do with the clients that you work with, but I find it very powerful, like you were saying, to just acknowledge with your brain and making sure that you're open to the field of opportunities and possibilities.
Yeah,
Nice.
and just on that, 100%. Some of my clients, that's one of our first exercises, right? It's, what is it you want? What's the big picture? Where do you want to go? And you can see, and this is where the transformation is absolutely beautiful, because there are some who have the idea and it's very kind of mousy and small in the background, and they're actually afraid small, and they're actually afraid to articulate it. So actually say it out loud. And that in itself is creating so much friction and obstruction to you allowing that to be. So that exercise in itself is such a massive proportion of you going upon this journey, because then it's, yes, I want to have a property portfolio of 11. Yes, speak it, and then allow people to kind of respond and provide opportunities.
I love it. And I think it brings on to the next question I was keen to ask you. Throughout the work that you've done, and I'm sure everyone is different, everyone is on their own journey, but any particular like positive impacts that you've seen on people's life in terms of like, I don't know, change of mindset, change of lifestyle? Like, tell us more about the positive impact that you have on people's lives.
Yeah, and if I, to be really tangible and just be really clear, for example, I remember one client had, I think it was just £10,000. I say just £10,000 in debt, but it's very significant. And she was a parent of 3 children, a single mum. She was earning a decent salary, actually, I think it was about 50K, but nothing was left at the end of the month, as you can imagine, maintaining the household. And just from avoiding letters and debts piling up, complete transformation, cleared those debts, never had the desire to own a property. And I think the last time we spoke, which must have been, or she updated me a little while ago, she had about 10 grand in savings. So it's like a complete transformation.
Yes.
And, when I hear that, it literally fills me with such joy, because that's going to have a massive impact on generations to come. She's now going to acquire an asset. So, of course, clearing debt, increasing savings, improving confidence, which will carry you through, right? Future job, salary requests, or again, on the other side, on the business side, I work with founders as well. And there, obviously, I'm bringing in my accountancy and my business finance expertise, but getting people to be brave, to get clear about their business model, the services they're providing, how much it costs to deliver those services, and which service to lean into, because actually that one right there is really profitable. Or even looking at the prices of your services and understanding that I could actually charge more. And even if some people are going to say no, the increased price point and number, getting people to bring home much more money. So yeah, really great outcomes, I think.
I love it. You're actually mentioning a point that we haven't covered just yet, which is very important. The whole like work that you're doing right now, and those people, really looking to get a healthy relationship with money and achieve the financial goals. Like you said, the sooner it gets done, the sooner we can have a positive impact on generations. Because I feel like definitely we are getting better at, bringing certain level of awareness around super important topics, money being one of them. But I feel like we'll still carry on the legacy of our parents. I know, for example, they've never talked to me about money, and or you replicate the pattern of your parents as well. Like there is a huge piece that is just under stated and under talked about that we should definitely bring up. And I mean, I guess this is why I'm very excited that we're having this conversation, because essentially what I love is the idea of like breaking the pattern of repeating something for the sake of repeating something. You could actually be in a position to decide for yourself, how do you want to manage your finances and so on. So I'm glad that you're bringing this one, because I feel like it's super key as well.
It is. And, if we think about the suite of the factors that it influence your financial decisions and the state of your finances today, of course, your upbringing, parents, guardians, the environment that you were raised in, or, and I could continue here. But yes, that parent piece is a big one. And often we do things and just plod along our daily lives and not realize that actually what I'm doing here doesn't come from me. It comes from before me, and it's just an underlying assumption that this is how it goes, until you pause and realize, hold on, why am I in this situation? This is not desirable. I don't want this. And you start to kind of unpick. So that's a big piece, and really exposing. And I think, even back to your point about not talking to your parents about money. Yes. And, it's a different generation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Their times are very different. The fact that we talk about mental health, we talk about money is a relatively new thing, right?
Yeah.
So even the piece around getting and having that conversation with your parents is just so huge. And, when we talk about life insurance, for example, and that creating generational wealth at a click of a finger, I say that realizing what I'm clicking about, but I didn't mean that. But that, is really important. And if you can overcome the barriers and the taboo of, having that parent conversation, that is really huge. And it's hard. I remember having that with my mum, and it took a long time to kind of get her comfortable talking about it, but it's life-changing.
It absolutely is. Talking about life-changing, we are just a few minutes away from us wrapping up. As usual, time flies. Any final thoughts that you want to share that we haven't talked about? We already said priceless tips, but just want to make sure that we wrap things up with anything that comes to your mind.
Yeah, we didn't touch on neurodiversity, for example, and mental health. I just mentioned it just now. And of course, I guess we don't need to go into it necessarily, but financial struggles 100% can affect your mental health, and it's an area that I'm heavily in, and I work on, because it's important, and it can spiral into so many problems. And then on the neurodiversity side, neurodiverse minds, I made this point to kind of reassure. Some people are really struggling with their finances and not realizing why, and it's very frustrating. It's like, I just can't seem to do X, Y, Z. And sometimes it might be because of neurodivergence within the way your mind works. And that's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean it's a dead end. It just means, actually, let me just pause and figure out what works best for me. And I say that because a lot of my clients are neurodiverse, and we still bring about amazing results and transformation. It's just realizing how you operate. There's nothing wrong with you, no matter what the state of your finances are. And as well, you can always do better. And that's the beauty of it, I think.
I love it. I don't think there is a better way to finish. Essentially, anyone listening to this, wherever you are in the globe, and however your brain function, nothing is wrong with you. You are not a lost cause. You can tackle the finances the way you want it. As you said, it's just a matter of bringing that awareness and finding the right approach that works for you.
Yes. Beautifully summarized.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Crystal.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.